Since season 20 of Sister Wives ended a couple of weeks ago, it's been a while since we've checked in with them. But I wanted to come back to a story I've been reporting about Christine Woolley's daughter. I also wanted to let you know what was going on with Janelle Brown's house. So, last year, Christine Woolley's daughter Isabel was sued, and the case was crazy. And I think I told you that when it was filed, it felt really strange because the woman who was suing her said that Isabel caused a car accident which set off a chain of events. So Isabel hit someone, and then 3 cars ahead of them hit the woman who was suing. The woman didn't sue the person who hit her after Isabel did. She sued Isabel. This case was also brought 2 years after the accident. She said that she was hurt and that this was, it was all those kinds of harms. When Isabel got a lawyer, she rejected the claims that she hurt anyone and that it was her fault. In the end, you can only be responsible for what happens in your own car, not what happens in the cars ahead of you. We said on this station at the time that this seemed strange. Does this woman really know that Christine Brown is Isabel's mom? Does she think that there's money here to be made? Why is she waiting 2 years to sue her? Why isn't she going to the insurance business of Isabel rather than Isabel? And in the state of Utah, every single person is required to carry their own insurance and liability insurance for these types of crashes, because Utah is a no-fault state. So, coincidentally, they went back and forth for a while, and Isabel went through a number of lawyers. But then something happened in the late fall of 2025. Allstate, her insurance carrier, stepped into this lawsuit. So instead of Miss Isabel having to handle this case on her own, Allstate Client Services legal team comes in and all kinds of things start changing, and they do a 75-page subpoena for this woman's medical records, and it's for multiple clinics and her work. And then they order a deposition, and within 2 months or 3 months of those requests, suddenly Isabel's deposition is canceled. And then this week, a request is made for discharge. It says, Defendant Isabel Paige Brown, through counsel and pursuant to Rule of Civil Procedures 7K4, hereby files the following request to submit for decision stipulation for dismissal with prejudice. On February 17th, Plaintiff Heather Landvatter and Defendant Isabel Paige Brown submitted their stipulation for dismissal and prejudice. And so they were asking the court to dismiss the case. And why would they come up with this? Why? Well, then it turns out that they file in a separate form which says that the agreement is that the matter will be dismissed with prejudice with each party to pay his or her own costs. So that means the woman that sued Isabel, whatever happened, whether it was they found in the medical records that she didn't have the injuries that she claimed, Allstate did a deposition and found out that she didn't have the issues that she claimed, or Allstate's came in and realized that this was a frivolous case and there was no way that they were going to pay the claims here, and the plaintiff was forced to withdraw the case. Because when a case is dismissed with prejudice, it means that there is no liability here. And if they want it dismissed with each side incurring their own legal costs, it means that the plaintiff was told essentially that there's no case here and they're not going to get paid. There's no settlement. If she has to pay her own fees, there's no settlement. So Isabel's case that was again filed 2 years after the car accident happened by this woman is dismissed with prejudice because Allstate shows up in the 11th hour and saves the day. So friends, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're getting sued for a car accident, make sure you loop in your insurance provider right off the bat so they get involved, because no one should be suing you if you have car insurance. Car insurance is there to help you cover these kinds of expenses. And insurance carriers, they don't like to pay for these types of things. And if they think someone is potentially scamming, they're going to take what they do. And this case to me always had so many red flags. It just felt like, why is she waiting 2 years to sue, and why now? And why Isabel? So good for Isabel for getting the help that she needed and for getting this case dismissed, because honestly, what a nightmare for her have to go through that, and good for the legal team for helping to represent her in what appears to be extremely positive way. This is a great outcome for her cause there's no liability on her part. So Isabel's case is now dismissed with prejudice. So that is done. She's safe. It's good. Now, Janelle Brown recently has been getting a little bit of heat. People have kind of turned on her. I don't know. I'm not really sure why, simply because of a narrative of storyline, because they think she somehow did something bad to Mary. But it's been years and years and years since all of this happened. But she's not letting that get to her, and her brand new home is almost done. And so she shared an exciting update that I think for some women that leave polygamy or leave abusive relationships, this might make you have hope. She wrote, "I'm getting closer and closer to moving day, and my heart is exploding. This home represents more than a place to live. It's the first space I've picked without needing agreement or permission. Every choice here was mine. From the land to the plan to the timing, what stopped working for me was waiting to feel certain before committing. I had to learn to trust myself instead. This house holds proof that I can choose and support myself." Think about that. This woman is 55 years old, and she's saying this is the first time in her life she's bought a home without permission or an agreement. I don't know if that's actually true. She did buy a house at one point in Wyoming when she split from Cody, and I don't think he was involved in that. But I would say that in the most recent years, yes, for sure. She hasn't done much of anything without having to, bend to Cody's rules and his expectations. She's also seeming to drop hints that, her life and her show is done. It's kind of weird, but she seems to now also not only, showing that she has the strength to buy this house, but she's now reacting to some of the online criticism about her. And it says, "When your life has been public, people think they know the whole story. For a long time, there was a version of me that made sense to everyone watching. It was familiar and recognizable. What stopped working was trying to stay inside the version that I had changed. Growth doesn't always match the storyline. While so much of my life is on camera, the real building didn't happen there. It happened in the quiet decision no one else was a part of. No explaining, no proving, just me learning to trust my own thinking. Again, that's where independence really begins." She wrote in the caption, "When parts of your life are visible, people often assume they understand all of you. They identify the version that fits the narrative. What they don't see is how much you're changing behind the scenes. Growth doesn't always announce itself openly. Sometimes it's subtle. It looks like deciding differently, thinking differently, releasing expectations that no longer fit. For me, the most important changes weren't dramatic. They were private. They were the small, steady moments where I trusted my own judgment without needing it to be affirmed. If you're growing quietly right now, even while parts of your life stay visible, you're not behind. You're just becoming more honest with yourself. I do wonder as they all start to move forward. Specifically Janelle, who has fought the most out of all of these women that polygamy was the problem, or that, there was anything that happened that might have been on her part, or things that she said or done that might have been inaccurate. And I'm not saying that she's a liar. I'm saying she was strongly indoctrinated into a cult, which the cult was all about lying. So for her to say now she's being more honest with herself, does that mean she's being honest with the public about who she is? Something that I wish that she would talk about more is the number of times she left Cody. I think that would be powerful for other people. I also wish she would do this without charging women money, but that's just my view. But this is something that I think is important that maybe she doesn't even know is about leaving a cult. This comment after big transitions, women often think they're stuck because they're afraid. But what I see in myself and in women I work with is something softer than that. It's the loss of order. The moment when no one else is setting the rules anymore and suddenly you're face to face with your own choices. That can feel unsettling even when you're capable. What moved me forward wasn't courage or certainty. It was letting myself to choose without waiting for confidence to show up first. If you're in a pause right now, nothing has gone wrong. You're learning how to trust yourself again. And then she made a couple memes or a couple digital posts that say, It's the constant second guessing and wondering if you're allowed to choose something different now. After everything changes, you're suddenly making decisions without the old structure that silence can feel unsettling. What stopped working for me was waiting to feel ready before moving forward, because that moment never came. What helped me was realizing confidence doesn't come first. It's built by choosing and then choosing again. Stuck isn't failure, it's a pause before self-rest catches up. One thing that I will say is that part of her growth in truth to me would be that she would get honest about the fact that she was in a cult, right? I think there's a lot of pride on her part because her family members, before she even got involved in this group, tried to warn her about not getting into this cult, and they were fearful about her involvement in this. And so what she's describing, at least in my experience of covering these types of high-control groups, is that when someone leaves a high-control group and a cult, it is very disorienting. Because inside the cult, they tell you how to think, how to feel, what to eat, what to watch, what you can do for your social time, who you can date, who can be your friends, what time to wake up sometimes, how to wear your hair, how to spend your money. They set up this system where everything that they tell you is how you should live. And so for people inside, they think they're happy because they don't have to make decisions on their own.
They can just look to this magic list that tells them how to live. And then the payoff for them is that they're going to get into the celestial kingdom and they're going to be, getting better in this world of life.
And I think with Janelle, she has this self-improvement mindset, and she really believes in this sort of I'm going to be my best self, and that whole system that's built into the Elves of Perfection. She goes off to the floods and gets into even a more radicalized version of it. But she is deconstructing now, and there is confidence for anyone that leaves this kind of group that decisions making is powerful. A lot of women that leave these groups haven't and don't know that they can choose things like the clothes that they wear. Making a decision to buy something without permission is a huge choice, and it can feel overwhelming. Making a decision to build a house without having someone to consult with to ensure that everything you're doing is godly and ordained can be a huge choice. Having the confidence to even realize that walking away from this means you won't go to hell, means you won't burn up, means you're not wicked. That's really what ends up making people so depressed, is because when they walk away, they think they failed. And this cult specifically is all about perfection, and so they want everyone to be their best selves. And a true testament for Janelle, for her growth, will be the point when she realizes she doesn't have to be her best self. She doesn't even have to be any level of perfect. And when she can start to admit the lies of the cult and the lies of what she went through and the lies that she had to say in order to promote what was going on. I was listening to McKelty and Tony, who were on their Patreon a couple weeks ago, and Tony made this comment that what he would if the show were to continue. He said what he would really like to see is that some of them start to get more honest with what the cult was right and start to talk about and help women leave. It's hard to admit you were wrong. And it's also hard to admit that you were roped into something that was bad and that it might have brought you down the wrong course because you were manipulated and coerced. And that's a shame that people shouldn't hold, because the shame should go to the abusers that are doing this to the people involved, right? And because they're indoctrinated so much to not want to be failures, it's hard for them to admit sometimes that it was all a sham. And then there's this whole thing about the pride of it, that they don't want to acknowledge that they might have been deceived or they might have deceived others, whether intentionally or unintentionally. My wish for Janelle more than anything is that rather than trying to use this platform to help others before she's fully deconstructed herself, that she would go through therapy on her own and deal with this before trying to rope anyone else into her possibly already broken thinking. There's this other tendency with people that come out of cults as they get into new cults. They cult hop or they try to fix other people. So if I can't fix myself, I'm going to fix you. It's just a way to not think about yourself. So my hope for her is that I hope to see how Christine's doing her thing where Christine's able to deconstruct and talk about the harms and be honest about it, and then also admit hey, Yeah, I was deceived. Yeah, I made bad choices when I was inside this group. Or even Mary, who's acknowledged the same thing. It takes time. It takes time to get there. So Janelle is moving forward. She's still got a ways to go, and Isabel has beat this scam of a lawsuit and has won. So tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.